Hello ladies and laddies, I'm Newts, and this is the first no major skips run of Flushed Away. I'm doing a single take post-commentary bit here as there is quite a bit that needs to be explained. So as we get into the first level, let me just explain what no major skips is all about. So because of all the new developments that we've had, it was decided that we should make this category. And this category basically involves not doing any of the pseudo-level skips, like the Jar of Flies skip in Jar of Flies, the Flying Dutchman skip in Race of the Rats, and the Salvage Warp in Running the Gauntlet. So as you'll notice in a bit here, we're going to be taking a bit different routing because this is part of no major skips. Skipping the entire living room is considered a major skip. So what is a major skip as we see Roddy go to the bookshelf and do that whole section? So this is actually a perfect place to explain this. So there are three different criteria that determine what is a major skip. So the first thing is that we've divided the entire game, all the levels, into sections, and all these sections are defined as basically any discernible, or I guess distinguishable, whatever you want to call it, chunk of level that can be played through or skipped, basically. Which means that, like for example, for Kensington Apartment, we have the three parts of the living room, the couches, the combat tutorial table, and the bookshelf. And then we have the entirety of the pantry, and then finally the entirety of the kitchen. Those are 5 different sections, and we'll be doing kitchen skip normally here, so I'll just continue on. So, with that, it's, we kind of just divide it arbitrarily. Other than that, if there aren't any like super discernible sections, we kind of just divide it off at a certain point. We have a whole document, or not a document, but we have a bit of information in the Discord server regarding that. But anyway, so the second highest priority criteria is how much we're skipping in that section. So as we get into Jar of Flies doing the cutscene skip, I'll explain that. And since Jar of Flies is quite different, I'll need to get in that real soon. So basically, we have to, see how much of the game is skipped, like during a section. So in Kensington Apartment's case, we skip the combat tutorial because it's literally just pressing Y and B, the attack buttons. So that's not really anything interesting. So we go ahead and skip that, even though it's about 30 seconds or more. And that's the last priority thing, actually, is if something meets the other 2 criteria, or if something meets the second criteria at least, then the third one will be considered time. So if something is longer than 30 seconds, then that's what that is about. The, what's it, I don't know. But anyway, so yeah. If it's longer than 30 seconds, then that's a major skip, but if it doesn't meet the other 2 requirements, such as skipping a section, or if there's a lot of content within that section, then that's a major skip, if it does so. That's basically how it works. And so, we didn't skip the bookshelf section because that's quite a bit of fun. doing, there's quite a bit of action to that. And it doesn't take that terribly long. So it's a pretty good addition. So that's Kensington Apartment, and then this entire section of Jar of Flies. As you know, we skip the entire level usually, and that saves us about 5 minutes. Well, actually, no more, by 4.5 to 5 minutes actually. But anyway, as you're seeing, I routed this not routed this entire thing, but I went through the entirety of Jar of Flies to see what routing changes could be made. I made a few different discoveries, some not actually ending up to be useful, and others actually made a decently significant change. I'll mention the biggest one of these once it comes up, but most of this, if not all of it, was routed by Lance and or Super Squonk, so shout out to them for that. Before Jar of Flies skip was discovered by Super Squonk. So yeah, it's been pretty self-explanatory so far this level. There isn't really much going on. I switched the camera so you couldn't see the cricket ball that was chasing us there, like Indiana Jones style, but anyway, so more on sections. So sections, basically what I kind of figured on is I figured I would just kind of divide it mostly based on the room. I did an attack there just so I could time this platforming, because if you touch it while it's electrified, that's not a word. Whatever, it has electricity on it, then you die instantly. But anyway, so basically, sections are for the most part just like distinguishable rooms. So that's why it was pretty easy to kind of just see what was skippable. Here's my skip. This is the spider puzzle room cutscene skip. We kind of took weird routing around the entrance to skip a cutscene, so that's epic. And you'll also notice I may have weird movement, and that's because there are quite a few sections of this level, especially towards the end, where the game will lock your directions to Cardinals, so shoutouts to the Arizona Cardinals for that, gotta love it. So that's why my direction will rapidly shift in weird directions, just in case you're wondering. And so yeah, that's basically about it for this level. I was able to basically catch up where I needed to on that. This level is actually pretty fun to do without skipping it. It's like challenging. The movement is not terribly precise, but it's precise enough to where you'll need to practice it, and it's pretty rewarding when you do practice it. So yeah, after collecting the flies, we'll be leaving this level, and that will be it for that. The next section that we will be adding in is Into the Lair's Flood Room. If you're familiar with it, there is a tall room that you have to drain water from in order to get that, get through the room. But in any percent, we just go out of bounds and get to the bottom.
My word, I thought...
See, as we start that, I want to talk about pace first of all. So, Kensington Apartment, it says 2 minutes 35 seconds. That's not terrible, but
Right, Rita,
I know it can go down sub 2 minutes 30 seconds with the timing that we use for, full game runs, where you start from the title screen, pressing start game, to the usual, after you cancel the save game, whatever. And enter lair is going to be literally the same as any percent besides not skipping the flood room, so I won't care about that until it happens. So anyway, so in Jar of Flies, I had done a lot of previous runs. Most, if not all, of my runs ended before I could complete Into Lair, and those that I did complete, I accidentally forgot to save the splits for those. So I mean, for 3/4 of them, I actually did quite good, but I won't spoil much further on that. This jump is actually pretty tight from the box to the switch there. I want to figure out some backup movement for that, because not everybody's going to want to do that. It's really tight. It's almost as tight, if not as tight as the box jump in running the gauntlet in room 3. But yeah, this is the flood room. We used to do this before we figure out you could just go above the warehouse into the out of bounds and then death cancel and or just grapple to the bottom here. So yeah, that's about it for anything that has any disparity, from any percent. So yeah, continuing on. So Jar of Flies, for the most part, I had, like, that was a beautiful run. I won't be slow to brag. I felt really good about that. So that could have been a sub 850, maybe sub 845 with a little bit better movement, and then having a better Kensington apartment. So optimally could be sub 845, and then once I get to the end of Into Lair, which is probably my slowest split out of all these. So it's a good run with that, because, well, I mean, it was not a good Into Lair. I'll just spoil it. It was not very good. Case in point, this was the point where I had spent a long time just trying to get a no major skips run, and because of my high standards for, just showing off good gameplay, because, it's the first run of the category, I want to explain this, to people in the way that it should be explained, with, appropriately matched gameplay. So I did good enough, I would say, for the parts that had any disparity from any percent. So you know what, it's all good. But anyway, so this section I die another time, so we'll just talk about further into the run. So Race to the Rats, we do not do the Flying Dutchman, which is that one out-of-bounds skip that we had discovered at the beginning of this year, I think. Yeah, at the beginning of this year. And let's see, I don't think I've talked about how much everything saves. I know that I said that Jar of Flies skip saves 5 minutes over no major skips or so. And then Kensington Apartment, the lampshade skip over what our routing is in no major skips, that saves about 50 seconds. So that's like 5 minutes to about, we'll just say about 5 minutes, 45 seconds so far that we've saved. Or that we've not. So far that any percent saves over this category. So the 855 in any percent would be like, actually, is that accurate? Yeah, that's accurate.
Shall be the dawning of the age of
It is quite accurate. Okay. That's more like 6 minutes because I've had some any percent splits go sub 4 minutes. So anyway, now that we've approached closer to the end of into lair, let me just real quick talk about Race of the Rats. So Race of the Rats costs 2 minutes or so to complete. Well, it's not super that much that we save, because it's about 2 minutes, and so because we have to do the tutorial and then go through the entire level, whereas the Flying Dutchman, as we call it, phases through a wall to get to a developer exit. That saves about 2 minutes. So yeah, there you go. And then so we will be getting close to 17 minutes, whereas we would otherwise be at a really good 80% run would be like sub 10 minutes, maybe around the 9-minute 50 area. Like, we're talking a really good one. So counting up all the mistakes that we made into lair, definitely could have saved more than that. So yeah, as you see, 1645 could have been well, not really 7 minutes, but yeah, we lost a good amount of time. About 20 seconds for each time that we died. First time messing up the attack jump, and then the 2 times during both of the steam sections. Anyway, so this is without Flying Dutchman skip, the tutorial for Race with the Rats, the first time using the boat. There isn't anything that is like super different from what I had done before Flying Dutchman skip. Obviously there's more optimized insta-boost movement, though I don't really showcase that much here, simply just because of rust. I'll throw that John out there. I was pretty rusty with this section, but it's not terrible. Definitely, obviously, could have done better looking back on it, but yeah, it was pretty good. The part 2 I could have saved about 5 seconds, 5 to 10 seconds. But other than that, it's pretty good. So yeah, there isn't really much else to talk about here. I will mention, however, that there isn't really any way for us to like do any skips in this section. It's literally just boating, and I don't do the best job with that, so it's pretty slow overall, but it's still fun. I like it. Accidentally collecting the Roman candles. That doesn't really help us, since we'll only be using 4, well, besides any misfires, but we would be using 4 candles and running the gauntlet, so Anyway. Honestly, I would recommend this section for anybody just getting into learning the game. If you want to just do any percent and do the Flying Dutchman skip, not have to care about this, that is understandable. However, this section is the best section to learn the boat, not only because it goes over the controls and all that obvious crap, but it's also the easiest section to drive in, and it isn't divided up with platforming with Roddy and Rita like running the gauntlet is. So, and a good deed is just hard. You don't want to practice, initially at least, with the Jammy Dodger on a good deed. But you will want to practice it once you get it somewhat down. Anyway, that's the end of part 1. And yeah, now we get into part 2, which, yeah, we do this accidental split. I forgot which key that I used to go back up. I didn't want to accidentally, like, reset or anything, especially after all the time that it took. As you see, nearly 250 attempts. Plus, it's actually more close to 300 because of the times that I've either forgotten to or intentionally out of frustration not saved the splits. Definitely was a long time spent getting a decent run. And even though the early game besides Race of the Rats was kind of bleh, the rest of this is pretty fire, so gotta stick around for the rest of it. This section is normal. There isn't anything, worse than usual. That's the only real thing that's different. But, yeah, don't really care about that. It's not exactly consequential compared to all the other time loss that we can possibly accrue. And yeah, this is, let's see, considering all the cutscenes and stuff, it's hard to kind of calculate the time because individual level timing for this is 2 minutes 44, I think. And that's because of all the, cutscenes that we skipped at the beginning before starting the timer. Whereas we have the timer and everything going. And yeah. So that is 6 minutes and 10 seconds worth of the split. Could have saved about a minute or so with just better driving and then, making things better at the end. So, Escape the Lair actually goes pretty well, though. This is where I had some unfortunate things happen before, which I should have just kept that run, but, at least it culminated into this run, so, you know what, I'm fine with it. Though I do take a death here. I missed this, but it actually comes into favor because even though I missed this cutscene skip, which I get later on, I end up spawning back here, which I had forgotten was a thing. I skipped the cutscene where Spike appears in the elevator that would be to the left of us. And then we do the usual movement to the purple propeller point, and then, yeah, it's the end of Escape the Lair already. And from there, it's literally the same as any percent, so there isn't much else filler for me to talk about. So I accidentally misinput there, but you know how it is. Yeah, a lot of my movement isn't exactly up to par after this section. Like, from Escape the Lair on, there are quite a few times where I get mixed up with what inputs to do. And that wasn't exactly out of rust or anxiety or anything. That was simply just because I messed up. Just brain kind of disappeared. So, again, that's just how it is. So I'm going to let this run for a few minutes, and then I'll be back closer to the end of the level.
Hey! Think you can take us on, eh, mate? I'll knock you bum over elbow, mate!
Alright, with that brief intermission, just going through and escape the lair, I have returned.
Well,
And so, now that we are getting close to splitting, it actually didn't lose too much time. Could have been a little bit faster, but the individual level time for this level is only 40 seconds shorter than that, so might have been like the only time loss was literally that one death. So it's pretty good, all things considered. And so now we get to a good deed, which is the same as usual, except I do have some pretty good. Well, it's mixed. There are some good driving segments and some not so favorable ones, though a lot of that is attributed to just how the Jamie Dodger is sometimes. With having to maintain the pitch, the yaw, the rotation, the tilt, and all that other crap. Like, even right here, I kind of had to improvise. Usually I would go over the tires on the left, but just had to make do with what the Jamie Dodger chose for us to go. So, yeah, it's quite finicky, but I like controlling it. It's quite epic. Especially when you get moments like this. Just zooming away. I love it. But anyway, this is quite fast. Overall, about 20 seconds I think could be saved in a good deed in this specific instance. Yeah, I just decided to build up speed and then go over here just so that I don't have to, you know, deal with having to reposition with something slower. I don't know. It's just not the best section. That turn specifically just sucks. But anyway, so as I said before, we have about 6 minutes. 6 minutes in total from Kensington Apartment to enter lair that is chopped away in any percent, and then we kind of keep that same amount. It's more like 7 minutes at this point, assuming an optimal any percent run. Not counting like, you know, just like human theory, basically. If this were an any percent run, we would be 7 minutes behind. Basically what I'm saying. And those two bumps were intentional. The first one was because of how I was sent. I wanted to go one space to the right, but that didn't work out. So, yeah, and then the second bump on the black pipe before the turn is something that I actually had strategized simply to make that turn better so that you have a better line going straight for that setup that I did. Ah, man, I put a lot of work into this level specifically because, God, it is comparing to all the other levels. I would say maybe the third hardest overall because, like in general, for me it's not terrible. There are some times where I have bad luck with some of the skips and then I don't feel that great about it, but I personally find Kensington to be harder simply because of the route that I take in the kitchen. But anyway, it's the end of the good deed, and we come out with quite a bit of, like, that's probably one of my best good deeds in a full game run, oddly enough.
Well.
So, And now we get to Arachni's Revenge, which I actually had a really good split here. So that's more time that we don't need to worry about wasting. So we're still around the 7-minute mark for being, in comparison to the
All right
regular
then.
80% run, behind. So, besides a minute that was lost into lair, and about another minute overall, I would say, being lost from the other levels, then this is, yeah. It's about 5 minutes. And maybe not 5 minutes, that's a little bit. We'll just say 6 minutes. 1 minute timeless overall. Or maybe a minute and a half. I don't know. It's something. That's all I know.
I shall spin webs.
The rest of this
no
run is
more.
beautiful, though. See, before, I wanted to get a good run up until, like, Race the Rats, the end of that. But I couldn't even get past Kensington Apartment. For the longest time, my muscle memory wasn't exactly used to the whole
I am
deal with
El Tosto.
not doing lampshade skip and rather doing the combat tutorial skip. I also jump a little bit late here, but doesn't add up to be anything. The arachne fight, though, I'm gonna let that speak for itself because it's quite beautiful. In fact, because of it, I almost want to just say that, yeah, it is only 6 minutes overall behind an any percent run. Because, man, it's... The only mistake was missing the first hit of that spin attack, but that maybe loses half a second. I mean, besides losing the TAS only, or not TAS only, but hard, the TAS trick of getting in front of her to a disruptor AI. Oh boy, and then comes running the gauntlet, which I'll have quite a bit to explain, as
Hello, love.
it's just a lot to unpack. Considering the fact that we now have, a lot of strategies I implemented in the individual level run put in this, there's quite a bit that I need to go over. And so, like the first room, there isn't anything different, so I can kind of relax on that. But to newer players who aren't exactly familiar, the Jammy Dodger boat has quite a few of its own quirks. The stations that I can switch to, it has the crossbow in the back that we've used in part 2, we're forced to switch to, the air cannon that we primarily use, and then the unused mousetrap catapult that is also in the back that we just don't care about simply because it's not of any use. Though it has some interesting properties. We can actually die to our own catapult because it has splash damage that affects the Jammy Dodger. So that's quite neat. Other than that, there's not much else to say about the catapult. But station switching in general, the air cannon is the best to use. Oh, I should mention real quick, I hate not doing the above the buildings strat because of those two enemies. They always hit me no matter what. And I just hate that. It's like a second lost if you get hit from the back. If you get hit from the front, it's for each time that you get hit, it's like half a second lost if you get hit from the front, or from the back, I mean, because you get sent forward a little bit, but your momentum is stopped, or comes two-way stop, and then from the front, it just sends you backwards, so that's just a whole second lost. And then this is part of the reason why I was saying earlier is kind of forgetting my movement. Could have been done better there. But overall, decent part of room 1. And the driving leaves a little bit to be desired, but it's not terrible, so I'd just say whatever to it. So this is the room 2, and I ended up missing the first shot, but that is the first instance of station switching where we activate the fade out for us entering the... I miscalculated that jump, that's why I kind of cowardiced out from that. Cowardiced out, that's not a verb. You know what I mean. Anyway, so, yeah. That is the first of the optimizations. Had to go for death cancel here, because again, this is like kind of keep mixing things up between individual level strats and full game strats. You can reduce your height enough that you can go without fall damage there, but I had to do a emergency death cancel there. Anyway, before I get too off track, because there isn't anything else interesting for the rest of this segment, or room, I should say. Section, whatever. So, yeah, so basically, we activate the cutscene so it fades out, but then pause during the fade out, switch to the air cannon, and then shoot our shot, and then go back to the steering, because otherwise the status of the boat gets weird, and switching to the air cannon isn't possible unless you switch back. I mean, it's possible, but you have to switch, because it's in pseudo steering state, where it's forced into the steering state, but it still considers it in the air cannon state because you didn't switch back. But because we switched back, it's normal. So hopefully that isn't too weird of an explanation, but whatever, it's fine. Should be fine. So yeah, anyway, moving on, we have this next bit, which I think is the cleanest that I've done yet, besides maybe my individual level. I don't exactly remember what I did in that segment. I did the double jump to be safe there, but other than that, this was basically the cleanest I've done it in a while. Especially recorded, that is. And, yeah, that's about it for this room, so... And then the third room is the same as usual. The only other instance of station switching is room 4, so... There isn't anything else that we need to cover that's different. But man... Yeah, it's, Again, I have to say that I'm just, like, really proud of how this went. Not only because of the eventual time, which I guess if you skip to the end, then you'll know. Or read the title, actually. Now I think, yeah, if you read the title, you know that it's, you know, sub 57 minutes. But, whoops. Just the way that this went was surprising to me. Just how smoothly things finally, after so long, went. This game does not treat me very well, even though I love it so dearly. Yeah, it's just the price you pay for being a gamer. But, yeah, so I take my time doing what I was saying earlier is really tight jump. The other box jump in the warehouse and into the lair comparable to that jump, simply because of how tight it is, especially if you don't go for a setup like how I did into the lair, not just kind of just winging it and knowing what direction to hold, but also kind of hoping that it just works simply because. Also, sadly, I am 0 for 4 with my lever animation skips. I tried there, but it didn't work out. Oh well. I mean, I would have been a little bit more upset if it ended up being under 57 minutes, or just above 57 minutes, because one of the animation skips could have changed that, but we're good. It was under 57 minutes, which honestly my goal was just, I didn't even have a goal. I didn't know what to expect of this, so I thought we were going to get some time above an hour. But given how well this went, we can kind of see now how well any percent itself can be optimized. 39 minutes could possibly go down to 35 minutes, especially with all the optimizations and the other levels, plus just everything else. It's wild, to say the least. But I'll be doing the any percent run later. I hope to get it at the end of this year for emulator. And then I will be doing console runs after that. Unfortunately, I won't have my I have been trying to get a better HDMI converter for my console to my monitor as a capture card to my laptop, and it has not worked out at all. Like, every time that I try to make it not look bad, it just looks dark and bad. Like, the lighting is not great unless you're playing on emulator, but man, is it bad on mine. So, I mean, that's just how it is. Sometimes things just don't work out. So maybe eventually I'll get a better setup. Also, these three are a pain. They always get in the way every single time without fail. Makes me cry. But, yeah, accounting for the cutscenes and stuff at the beginning and end. Or not end, really, but the few seconds at the end. But mostly the beginning. This split actually went really well. The whole level did. A couple choke points, but other than that, all good. And then here is the last of the station switching. So I go ahead and shoot the log, and then after that switch to the air cannon, aim it, go back to the steering, and then shoot again with the Roman candles. And then from there I do what is actually one last station switch. I forgot about it until now, but this is called Station Stealth. We can skip a cutscene by going into the other stations since they don't trigger cutscenes. So, yeah. That is the last of the Jammy Dodger that we'll be seeing. And so, yeah. That's about it for that. There are no more anything like specific to no major skips. Castle Siege is normal. French Frog Legs is normal. The Amphibian Dawn, there is a skip that we could do in Amphibian Dawn, but it's close to, if not, tasks only. Also rip this first shot. I get the second shot though.
They are quite delusional, aren't they?
Miraculously. But
Oh, miss!
yeah, this overall was just great.
Brilliant.
Like everything after this went
Another one
splendidly, which is quite epic. So tallying it all up, we have about
Oh, miss!
17 minutes overall
Don't give up,
that
friend.
any
We
percent
will
saves
be
over this category.
Nice shot.
And because we got around 57 minutes, that means that I split a little bit early, but it's fine. Anyway, so yeah, 57 minus 17 is about 40. And some other math I don't feel like doing anymore because my brain is shut off, especially after doing this run.
Your father.
Also, the camera was weird here, so that's why my movement was a little bit weird. It saves time. That's all we know. Also missed the tried to go for the fastest strat there, but had to go for the second fastest. Oh well. The rest of this level goes well, so yeah.
Silly English.
Also, LaFrog behaved spectacularly. I was able to get him so that he spawned pretty close to me each time, so
Sacre bleu.
I mean, this is the furthest they went, so lost a second there, but other than that, was able to follow him pretty well.
You fight like that.
You are defeated,
And there he
sir.
goes. Yeah, compared to Kira's any percent run, we are about 15 minutes behind, I think. So, assuming that, you know, we go wild with it in any percent, there could be quite a big disparity in times, maybe around 20 minutes, especially if more things are discovered. Though it could also go down with the amount of things that we could possibly discover in into lair, as well as the other levels that have their own little skips. Especially Jar of Flies, actually, because that level is quite a bit to unpack there. But yeah, this was,
Cheers, mate.
I mean, you know, the rest of this goes well, so I think the last thing that I wanted to mention was that I will be working on, like I said earlier, regular any percent, aiming for maybe sub 36 minutes. And so I think it's attainable. I just have to play good. So I'll let the rest of this play out, and that'll be it for me. So yeah, enjoy the rest of it, and I'll see y'all next video.
Fritte melee. The obstacle course at home was...
Victory shall be mine! No unbested toad! You shall never escape! Aha! I'm hopping mad. Victory shall be mine! Draw further in the...
Anything worth?